This month we're looking at My Dress Up Darling, the manga, anime, and even live action rom-com about a quiet high school boy that makes traditional Hina dolls and a energetic popular girl that just loves cosplay. And so first, let's just talk about what it is. It is a rom-com, and I could see how this show gets mislabeled as just smutty, ecchi anime with no substance. And those first 3 episodes, you could definitely see how, there's just panty shots and boobs for no reason. The quiet nerd fan insert somehow ending up with the hottest girl in school. And it's a tired story full of borderline porn situations. But I think if you stopped at episode 3, that would be a shame, because the rest of the series, the 2 seasons and even the 15 volumes for the manga, it really does something interesting with all those sort of romance and rom-com tropes, and even just the way they tell the story is so much deeper than what it might get credit for at first glance. So the main character is Wakana Gojo. He's very dedicated, very polite, very demure high school boy. He never really made friends. He's really interested in making these traditional dolls because he lives with his grandfather. His parents died when he was really young, and he lives at his grandfather's Hina doll shop. So these traditional dolls, they're for this celebration in March 3rd, the doll festival. And so every family with a daughter will put out these dolls every year, and they can be really expensive. I'm lucky enough to still have my wife's dolls from when she was a kid, and they're stashed away at the grandparents' house. Every year we go over to grandma's and see the dolls, and then it's a really cool experience for my daughter. But yeah, these dolls can be like thousands of dollars. So there is real craftsmanship put into these dolls. And he wants to be this kind of doll artisan. But a neighbor girl shouts at him at the beginning of the show in a flashback that dolls are for girls and you're a weirdo, because of his dedication to the craft of making these dolls and this elementary school trauma that he never really recovered from. Both of those combine to make it so he has no friends at the beginning of the series. He just doesn't really think anybody wants him around. He's a weirdo with a weird hobby, and it's better for everybody if he just stays out of everybody's way. And then in comes Marin Kitagawa, and she's outgoing, assertive, independent, and with lots of friends. But Wakana is actually a really skilled doll maker, and all the things he thought everyone hated about him are exactly why he finds love and friendship and acceptance. He's a really nice guy. And not in like air quotes, he's a genuinely nice person, a genuinely polite person. He cares about other people. He just wants to be helpful. He just wants to do what he can for other people. And Marin is the catalyst to push him out the door and get him around other people. So she finds out he makes clothing really well, and she loves cosplay and wants to cosplay as a character. She tried to make the costume but failed because she's never done it before. And so from there, they start doing cosplay together. You could see this as a gender role reversal from a standard romance or rom-com, where the quiet, unpopular girl falls for the popular boy. Marin is assertive. Marin is active. Marin is driving the story and getting everybody together and getting the plot moving, where Gojo is a little bit more passive at the beginning. He just gets swept along through all this. But as they start making this first costume, gets really into it. He plays the adult video game that this character is from. He gets into making the costume the best he could, and they just both grow, and it ends up deepening their friendship. And even if you look at the series as a whole, I'm trying to keep spoilers out of this as much as I can, but episode 4 is an inflection point for both characters. episode 4 changes the dynamic. So if you stopped at episode 3 and just wrote it off as silly smut nonsense, you wouldn't get the heart of the show. And that kind of progresses through all these different costumes that they make together. You're rooting for both of these characters from the very beginning, and you want to see them get together. One thing that's really interesting with Marin is we see their relationship develop through Marin. And it's Marin realizing she likes him. It's Marin kind of freaking out over that. It's Marin being infatuated with him, but we never see Wakana's side of it, really. There's hints there, here and there, but you generally stick with Marin through the whole show. And just everything that Gojo does matters so much to her. And if Marin has a flaw, it's that she is very confident, assertive, and assured of herself when it doesn't have anything to do with Wakana. When Wakana Gojo is involved, she melts down and doesn't know what to do with herself. And that's another thing that I kind of want to talk about from a language perspective. Wakana and his grandfather, Kaoru, they both have they're gender neutral names, but they're usually girl names. So I guess in English, that'd be something like Courtney or Ashley. There are boys with these names, but they kind of feel like girl names, right? And throughout the show, there are a lot of these interesting ways that the writers play with gender in this way. Like the leads are gender swapped. Characters throughout the series do gender swapped cosplay. And it just seems like a really more interesting, fluid way of gender expression than maybe people are familiar with in Japan, through the way characters speak, through the way characters interact with other characters, through the costumes and characters that they want to try. There are a lot of different gender representations and different ways of being in Japanese society that is really interesting. And cosplay in general is a very female-dominated hobby. So there are lots of fun romcom elements of this very prim and proper Wakana being embarrassed all of the time. Speaking of embarrassment, I wanted to talk about maybe some of its reputation of being like a fan service anime. So what that usually means for people that aren't as familiar with anime and manga is the female characters will wear skimpy outfits and the animators will have panty shots for little to no reason other than our audience are men and that would make them happy. I guess kind of male gaze is probably an equivalent term in Western media analysis. There's other sort of ecchi fan service anime with male protagonists that are kind of like this at first glance, but I would argue that for the most part, I think the panty shots and things like that are used in a way, maybe not progressive way, but in a way that most anime does not use them. Most of it is to either show how confident Marin is in her own body and how she doesn't really care about being embarrassed or thinking about the way she looks in that sort of way, or Wakana just being so inept at being around people, and girls specifically, that it's used to make him flustered. But there are a couple of scenes in the first season that do feel a little bit exploitative. One of the side characters is introduced in a way that you could argue doesn't have to happen. And the panty shots around her as a character feel exploitative in a way that they don't with Marin. Like, it's not completely free of that sort of fan service ecchi DNA. I think the author is trying to do something fun with the stereotype that she knew would be put on her work too. So some of it just, it's anime. And unfortunately, there will be scenes where you don't want someone else walking in while you're watching it. But I think this show does a very good job of justifying why we're choosing to do certain things in terms of like exploiting female bodies, I guess. But yeah, and going back to cosplay being a female dominated hobby and scene, it really is mostly a girl thing, if you want to call it that. And also it's weird here. Like in the same sort of way that anime and manga are weird in Japan too. Like if you talk about that stuff too much, you will be clocked as a nerd. But in the US or other English speaking and Western countries, cosplay is seen as pretty cool. Like it's a cool thing that you could do. And I guess in the US too, if you think about it, the cosplay is only it's relegated to conventions. So anime conventions, comic conventions. You don't just cosplay because it's a Tuesday. In Japan, it is understood that these conventions and events are the only place where you, as an adult, will cosplay. And so the only other exception might be is like Shibuya Halloween. But there really isn't ever an occasion for adults to do this stuff in Japan, to the point where a pretty famous cosplayer dressed up as a Delicious in Dungeon character and went to the Osaka World Fair Expo, and lots of people online got really mad. Even within the cosplay community, people got really mad because she was doing cosplay at an inappropriate time and an inappropriate place. And Marin is very strange for a female character in that she loves adult video games, she loves erotic manga, she loves just video games generally and stuff like that. So it's again going to that sort of idea of, is she just like the ideal woman for the people that would watch and read this? And I don't think it's that. I think it's more that the author is trying to play with tropes and play with the idea that the main characters are not adhering to their gender stereotypes. There are a lot of places where the anime does things in a more interesting way than the manga, especially with visual gags and things. So this is the first CloverWorks thing I've ever watched. And the first season, you could see a little bit of the edges, like they kind of rotoscope backgrounds and things. But it was charming. It was nice. And so, yeah, season 2, they definitely got a budget boost. And you could tell, you can feel that in how much they added to like cutaways and sight gags and stuff like that. And it just is a really fun, I love the show, but like, it's just a fun place to spend time with these characters and in this world. It's really cozy and a nice place to be. And I think a lot of that is also the animation and the hard work from CloverWorks too. But if you have seen this show and all the way to the end, I would highly recommend reading the last 5 volumes. So from 11 to 15, the final arc is crazy. And I really enjoyed that story too. So definitely go check out the manga if you already know you like this show. And yeah, unfortunately, it's still up in the air whether they're going to make a season 3 or not. So that last arc could very well be a great 10 episode or 12 episode arc. It could also be a movie. It could be a really cool movie. Without spoilers, the way the show ended could be a nice tight bow on it, or it could come back for a 3rd season. Both are possible with the way the show ended. I really like this show and would love to see more. So it's hard to be in this sort of weird state. And there's plenty of really good anime that never got their final chunk of adaptation that they probably deserve. This is a great show. I really love it. The manga is great too. I would definitely recommend it to anybody that is into romance or rom-coms. For Japanese learners, it's actually really good too. The whole thing is filled with just everyday language. Honestly, this could have probably been a drama series. And I mean, it did get a live action adaptation just because it's completely, the content, even the way it's shot, It just looks like a drama. So there's tons of everyday language. You don't have to worry about the whole, like, oh, we don't speak like anime kind of issue that some shows do present. One thing is that Marin is a gyaru, is a part of this subculture. So basically everything she said is slang. So that can be pretty tricky if you're not familiar with modern slang in Japanese. But it's also a double-edged sword where it gives you a ton of exposure to modern slang and can be a boot camp in that way. So yeah, I'd probably give it about like maybe lower end 3. Nothing about this series is super crazy language-wise. And a lot of it is super useful because either whether you're a Japanese learner or just someone who likes watching anime and manga, this is a great series and maybe a great first series for people that aren't super into anime and manga. If you think you might not be a fan or what you've seen is not to your liking, I would definitely recommend My Dress-Up Darling, because not only is it a great rom-com and a great romance story, but all of the different cosplay characters come from different Japanese media. My Dress-Up Darling kind of functions as this tasting platter of all these other different things that you could also watch. All the different characters that she cosplays. One's from an adult game. Another is from a Magical Girl series. There's a fighting game character, a 4-panel comedy manga series, action comedies, and a straight romance. And the final costumes come from a horror visual novel. Just by watching this series, there's a bunch of different things that you could be made aware of. And these series, these genres, these mediums also might be interesting to you. So I think anybody looking for more Japanese media, this is a great first introduction to that, because it can basically introduce you to so many other series that you might be interested in all in one go. Yeah, they're parodies in this show. No actual anime or manga is referenced, but the parodies are done so well that you might be able to find something that is similar to what they were talking about in this series. So I think, yeah, just everything about the show, the story, the characters, the art design, the direction, everything about the show is just great. And I think if you haven't seen it yet, I definitely just stop the podcast and go watch the whole series. Go watch My Dress-Up Darling. It is amazing. I love it. At the end of every episode, I try to add in some recommendations of other media that I think would go along with what we're talking about this month. And with My Dress-Up Darling, I think I would recommend the drama, The Full-Time Wife Escapist. It's from 2016, but it's a really popular romance drama that I think if you liked My Dress-Up Darling, you're definitely going to like this. It's a really similar feel to My Dress-Up Darling, and with a decent amount of comedy, but still just being a romance. So it's this unemployed woman. She loses her job and then becomes a housekeeper. And through that, like, she signs a contract to pretend to be this, like, tech guy's wife. And it's the same sort of dynamic of, like, very confident, cute girl, very awkward, shy boy, and a lot of the same kind of comedy and cutaway jokes and things like that. I think that would go along with My Dress-Up Darling really well. And then another good high school show, not technically a romance, depending on how you want to look at it. If you look at the doujinshi manga, it is a romance, but I would definitely recommend K-On! K-On! Is a really fun show that I really like, about a high school music club at a girls' high school. These girls all come together and form a band. And it's the same sort of slice of life, really easy, understandable story that just is really nice and cozy and feels really good to spend time in. And I think that would go along with My Dress-Up Darling really well, too. My last recommendation for this month is Who Does Housework Anymore? A drama from 2025, from last summer, I think, about a housewife that runs into some guy from the government doing research, and he's just kind of a pain in the ass at the end. And from there, they just start developing a relationship and talking about women's roles in society, women's roles in the house. And it's a really pretty interesting comedy, slice of life drama that you might want to check out if you enjoyed My Dress Up Darling. So yeah, this month's recommendations are The Full-Time Wife Escapist, K-On!, and Who Does Housework Anymore. I think if you watched My Dress Up Darling and enjoyed it, I think you'll like these other series too. And so yeah, definitely give those a watch as well. So yeah, that is our show for this month. Thanks for listening to Like My Anime. If you enjoyed this episode, sharing it or leaving a quick rating or a comment helps other people find the show that might like it. And it really genuinely makes a huge difference. You can also follow the podcast and the YouTube channel wherever you listen or watch. I also set up a pay what you can Patreon to help fund the show with $3, $5, or $10 a month levels. Right now, it mostly helps keep the podcast going ad-free, but down the line, supporters at all levels will get bonus episodes, study guides, materials, and I also plan on having Japanese Media Book Club, and supporters can also vote on what topics we cover, make recommendations for what media I should check out. But for now, thank you so much for exploring Japanese media with me, and I hope you have a great day.